Welcome to the Collective Genius Podcast, the show for real estate investors who are looking to scale.
Welcome into the Collective Genius Podcast, the weekly podcast for real estate investors that want to grow and scale their business. My name is Leon Barnes. His name is Adrian Hernandez. Welcome to the show, my man. How are you?
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for having me on, Leon. I'm pumped, man. I remember when you first did this, I was like, I can't wait till I get the call.
Here we are. I started the show off like that with you because there are a few people, we have 500 members in this community, but there are a few people that when you see them, you automatically have this hype moment. You're smiling, you're laughing, like you just want to give a big bro hug every time I see you. You're such a positive person and a positive member in this community. We love having you.
Heck yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I was taught early on that energy is everything. So approach it with energy. Let's go.
Well, you approach every day with energy. We have this saying in sports, especially basketball, that the basketball always finds energy. And I think success is the exact same way. And clearly you have done that. Why don't you tell everyone, Adrian, where you operate out of and what it is, what type of real estate that is that you do?
Yeah. What's going on, everyone? As Leon mentioned, my name is Adrian Hernandez. Can remember the name from the old Rocky movie, right, Leon? Hey, yo, we're good. But it started off as a real estate agent very early in my life. My parents were in real estate. Now I say that they didn't give me a book of business, right? They didn't. It's not like I latched on to my parents' business, and and if nothing wrong with that. But I started off as an agent, and now we own My Home Sold in Dana Point, California. We service the Orange County, Los Angeles, Inland Empire, and Riverside market, and we specialize in wholesale and fix and flip.
Now, usually when we're doing this is a journey of real estate investors. People listen to this show because they're wanting to learn from the people that are at the highest in this industry, but that's not where you started. And usually when I ask, how did you get started in this business, or what it is that you wanted to do in your life, most people go, well, I wasn't quite sure. You knew early on. You started as a real estate agent, correct me if I'm wrong, at 19 years old.
Yeah, I was 19, and I knew I was going to be doing this at 16. I wrote a vision letter when I was 16 years old. My English teacher, God bless her soul, had the whole class write a vision letter of where they see themselves in the future, what type of business they want to own. And I wrote that I was going to own a real estate company in Southern California. I was going to be on the water and by the beach. At the time I wasn't. And here we are. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Did you know that you wanted to do this because your parents were successful at it?
Yeah, well, so my parents did okay. It was my uncle. My uncle really I'm second generation Mexican here. So, any immigrants listening, right? You can come over here most of us didn't come over here with a lot, right? You make what you get when you get here. And so my uncle, I never seen this life, right? He had the big house on top of the hill. He had all the cars. He had everything that I thought at that time what success looked like. And so, yes, most definitely, I was really, really, influenced by what my uncle did, what I saw the market doing. And not only that, Leon, but I don't think I ever said this. I was a transaction coordinator for my dad when I was like 9 years old, 10 years old. I was helping them push paper. So I just fell in love with it at a very early age.
Yeah, man, I hope you look back at that experience and really are thankful for the opportunity. I'll give you a case in point of why I say that. My mom raised 4 boys by herself. I've said it on this podcast before. Hardworking lady, owned her own cleaning business. Functional illiterate. Couldn't write her own checks like that. But got checks written to her. Right. So she was a hustler. I cleaned houses with her and buildings and 9, 10, 11. I remember begging to go. And I'm very thankful of that blue collar upbringing that gave me my work ethic.
I agree.
You had an opportunity at 9 to see a business that, creates more millionaires in this country than anything else. That's a blessing, my friend.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree. And it was interesting. My grandma was a house cleaner for Kenny Rogers when Kenny Rogers was really big back in the day. She was their like main maid and just take care of Christopher, the little son. So yeah, so super cool. So after that, she got to meet Michael Jackson, had Michael Jackson's hat, so she got to travel the world. So I believe this is a little side, it's a little different what the podcast is, but I believe like my grandma had these visions that she saw, with Kenny, and she would tell me about them. And then I'll never forget one day she took me to Kenny Rogers' son's house. I was super young. And I just remember looking around going, this would be the life. Like this would be cool. Right. And then my uncle does, and you just connect the dots. And it's, there's Tony Robbins has a great saying. I love what he says. He says, life doesn't happen to you. Life happens for you. Right. Everything we go through is all leading up to these great moments.
To add one more thing to that, I too feel blessed because the work ethic that I received from my mother. But I can tell you that as a kid, going into those houses and working and doing whatever, anytime someone needed extra work done, I would go and do it at these houses. And again, I'm 10, 11, 12, all throughout middle school. But I think that the biggest takeaway for me was coming from where I came from. How do these people live in these houses? Because however they live in these houses, I need to figure that out. My mom cleaned the house of famous golfer Tom Watson. Oh, so just like you, I didn't have Kenny Rod. I didn't have the gambler, but I had a heck of a golfer that when we would go into his house, I'm like, okay, I can't play golf at this level. But the majority of the people that my mom cleaned houses for were associated with real estate at some level. Okay. So I look at, like you said, it happens for me. And it was the visions that I was seeing early on that I had no clue that I would end up in, but ultimately ended up in. So, dude, this story of usually somebody says like, we had, other podcasts in the last couple of weeks where people were like, I had no clue. You knew early on what you wanted to do.
Yeah. I knew. And then the market crashed when I was graduating, and my parents go, you're not going to real estate. Yeah, they're like, you're not going to real estate. They're like, you're not. My parents lost everything. They're like, you're not. You're going to figure something else out. And so I did what everyone was doing in 2008, and I went to go try to become a firefighter. So I went, got my EMT, or tried to get my EMT, did some wildland stuff, and instantly learned that this was just not for me. And then that's when transition. I was 19, and I went into real estate.
Now, you started the traditional route. You went retail first, and if memory serves me correct, you went the retail brokerage side and then fell in love with flipping. Is that accurate?
I did, yes. And this is actually a cool stat. Prior to me getting into real estate, I had 22 jobs. So I had 22 jobs from high school till 19 years old. I say that, guys, because I was really good at interviewing. I would challenge myself. Like, my friends would laugh at me because I would go and I'd be like, I'm going to go get an interview here. They're like, you're not even going to accept the position. I go, yeah, no, but I want to know that I can get it. And I would go and I would interview, and sure enough, they would call me back for the position. And so when I got good at interviewing, I remember looking at listing agents and they were interviewing. And I was like, wow, this kind of works hand in hand. And that's what led me into, being a traditional real estate agent.
I love where this is going, by the way. I'm learning so many fun facts, and this is interesting. So you have to tell us, of the 22, were there one or two that you were like, this is ridiculous, I don't even know why I'm doing this, I just want the challenge of it? Was there one of those that you can remember?
The Starbucks was my like the biggest one, where I was like, what am I doing here? Because at the time, I was a high school kid. I was lifting a lot of weights. I wasn't like, now I'm energetic, but I'm in high school. My ego's through the roof, right? I look like this majority of the time, right? And I remember, you go into Starbucks, you got to be perky, you got to be alive, you got to be excited, right? Most of them are drinking coffee all day. I didn't like coffee at that time. Now I'm like semi-addicted to it, right? But I remember being there and I'm like, what am I doing? I got to answer. And I actually got fired because I wasn't perky enough. I wasn't like, oh, hey, welcome to Starbucks, right? I was like, hi, what can I get you? So it was throughout that job where I was like, what am I doing?
That's funny to think that you, knowing you now, would not be the perky one when someone came in. But I was expecting you were going to say something like, you tried out for, you interviewed for a clown or something like that. I was thinking that you would have one funny one.
Well, here was a good one. So the gym, there's a place called the Gym by us. And I thought it was an actual gym that you would go work at.
What about the kids' gym?
The kids' gym. So I show up and it's the kids' gym. And they have me interview and interact on what it would be like to entertain a kid. And I'm like, dude, that was probably yeah, that one was it. Cause I was showing up thinking it was a weightlifting gym.
Yeah, I remember that when our oldest son was really young, there was a place called the gym, and I called it the Petri dish. But I do remember the gym and being confused the first time that my wife told me we were going to the gym with our son. I was like, "Why are we taking him to the gym?" That's funny that you thought the same thing. All right, so let's go back to the retail side of things. You're 19, you start doing the retail business. You grow that. You grow a brokerage, and at some point you start. Well, Let's start there. How big did the retail brokerage get? And then at some point you move into investing. But that was your main focus out of the gates.
Yeah, so I was a real estate agent. Actually started off as an assistant. So I was an assistant first to the broker. Just needed to make $200, $300 every, couple of weeks to put gas in my car, right, and show up. And so I started off as an assistant. From an assistant, I got my license, became an agent. Funny story, as I was transitioning from being an assistant to an agent, we were hiring somebody. That person that came in to replace me is my wife today, Kellyanne. She was the new assistant, and so it's kind of, throw that out there, right? Love you, babe. But so it was super cool how that happened. So after being an assistant, I became an agent. By the time I was 24 years old, I was the number one agent in that office. At the time, Leon, I thought I was balling out of control. I was making $350,000. I was doing 45 sales a year. I was at that time, I was doing very well for being 24. And as I mentioned, I always had the dream of owning or selling real estate at the beach. And at the time, I was in Fontana, Rancho Cucamonga, which is the inland empire of where I'm at now. And at 25, my wife and I made the decision that we were moving markets, and we were, okay, we're going to Orange County. Took the idea to my broker and go, hey, I'm out, I'm leaving. And he goes, well, instead of you being an agent, let's go open up an office. You're talented. You know what you're doing. Let's go open up an office. And I got to say, guys, it was the biggest learning experience of my life. I look back and I'm like, I wish I wouldn't have done it, but I'm so grateful I did because of what I learned. We struggled. I built an office. It ended up becoming number 5 in all of Mission Viejo, which is pretty hard to do. And I did that in 3 years, literally just by picking up the phone and calling real estate agents every day, setting up one-on-ones, just meeting them for lunch, trying to get them to recruit them to come to the brokerage.
That says a lot about you. The reason we love doing this pod is we get these stories, this journey of lessons learned. Everyone on this pod has tons of lessons that they learned. I guarantee you that's something that you use on a daily basis still to this day, is picking up the phone and understanding that sometimes you just got to make the dials. Sometimes you just got to do the work, even though it's hard. And that clearly was a difficult task for you. Probably taught you a lot and built a foundation for where you are today. The transition, when do you start flipping? Like, when do you start, doing a deal here or there as you're growing? Because it's very hard to grow a brokerage in a new area and do other things.
Yep. 2025, right before, I'm sorry, 2015, last year, 2015, right before we moved is when I did my first flip. So I was a big Mike Ferry guy. I knocked on 100 doors a day. I made thousands of phone calls every day by myself. Like, I was just a big Mike Ferry guy. So I was door knocking. No, I take that back. Sorry. I was cold calling, and it was an expired listing. It was an expired listing. I showed up. The house was it was a really bad hoarder house. Last listing agent didn't try to sell it. I remember coming back to the office and I'm like, what do I do? And an agent goes, dude, let's flip it. Let's flip it. He was doing flipping. So my first flip was a joint venture when I was 24 years old. And that was right before we moved. And I'm grateful that that happened, because that's what set the flipping career. When I came and opened up the office in Orange County, I was still doing 1, 2, 3 flips on the side. I was wholesaling without knowing what wholesale was. I would get a deal and I would send it to an agent and charge them 15 grand finder's fee, not really knowing what I was doing.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. The term of wholesaling became a thing. Really, the terminology wasn't even used when I joined CG in 2014.
No.
14-15 area time frame. Most people were flipping.
Right.
If they weren't flipping, they weren't calling what they were doing of assigning a contract. They weren't calling it wholesaling. No. So you now go into this new market. You build out this brokerage, and you've got a flip under your belt, or got some flips under your belt. When do you make the decision to go all in on the investment side?
Yeah. So at that time, the brokerage was tough. And you guys ever ran a brokerage? There's not a lot of money in a brokerage. Unless you own an escrow and everybody's really contributing to that escrow, you're really not making a lot of money. And so at the time, Nick Ramirez, one of my business partners, he saw me on Instagram, and he had been hounding me to come work for us at the brokerage. Well, he finally comes on board, and he has a little bit of a background of pre-foreclosures and sort of another broker he was working with. And so I hired him to literally find us off-market deals. Like, hey, I need you to go find us deals. We need deals to flip, so help us find us deals. And I was still flipping at that time. I had a partner. We had really started to do, we started off at like 5 flips a year, then we went to 10, and Nick was helping us find those deals. Well, a lot of these deals we started passing on. And then Nick and I have a conversation, and we're like, dude, why don't we just start selling these deals to the other investors? And at that time, the brokerage, it was doing well, and then the main broker, the main broker owner, some things happened, and the brokerage just tanked. I lost half my staff overnight. I lost half my agents overnight. And when that happened, Nick and I were doing so well, just doing these off-market deals, that I'll never forget. I called him and another agent to my house, and I'm like, hey guys, I'm shutting this thing down. Nick, I think we got something going here, and we're going all in. We're going to create the perfect home buyer, and we're going to go all in on flipping and wholesaling. And that was in 2019. And I shut the brokerage down at the same exact time in May of 2019.
You burned the boats.
Burned the boats. I actually got escorted out of the office and served with the lawsuit because I said I no longer wanted to do this anymore. And so it was a whole nother mess. But yeah, it was interesting for me to get kicked out of the own office that I have built, but I'm very grateful for it, Leon. I learned so much from it that I don't think we would be here today if it wasn't for that.
Well, if Steve Jobs can get kicked out of his own company, then I guess we could as well, right?
Yeah. And so, that was big. It was a big ego check, but I knew we had something. And the other agent decided not to join Nick and I, and it was just Nick and I. We ended up getting an office, and it took off from there. And side note, guys, I still had a brokerage. Brookshire Hathaway came to me and gave me a franchise that they had. And so Intero, the company I was with prior to me shutting down, Intero was owned by Brookshire Hathaway. I'm very good friends with one of the owners. He came to me and said, hey, I love you. I like you. I love who you are and what you stand for. I still want you to have some sort of entity. So we still carried the broker name. And the reason being is I was still getting a lot of past clients in center of influence business. A lot of the leads that we weren't able to turn into wholesales or turn into fix and flip, we were turning around and listing them and still making revenue from those leads. At that time, before Novation was popular, we were doing a lot of that stuff. We didn't even know what it was called, right? We just had a lead that couldn't convert.
Well, you guys have a competitive advantage because you can do net listings in California.
Right.
Like, I don't know if that's still the case, but I know back in the day, the net listing was something that was very similar to a novation that most states couldn't do.
Correct. And that's what we do here is a net listing. We don't do a full-blown like novation. It's always been
no reason to. It's
right.
legal to do a net listing.
Right. We just didn't know what it was called, right? Like to your point, none of this terminology existed. We didn't know until I got introduced to I got introduced to Carlos Reyes first, and then that's when that whole real foundation and understanding what we were doing came into place. And then CG came along, and we talk about it later, but that's when everything just fueled from 2019 to 22 when we joined CG. It was life altering.
Well, you entered in a market that was just about to catch fire. Like 19 was the time frame that it started. Inventory started to drop. Things started to heat up a little bit. We're right before COVID, where it really took off. I remember 19 being much easier than 18, relatively. So out of the gates, what were the biggest struggles for you as you're starting this new entity, this new investment entity, and at having burned the boats on the brokerage side, saying, all right, I'm all in? What were your biggest struggles out of the gates?
The mindset of getting from an agent, broker, owner to understanding that you're more of an investor now, changing that, right? And so that was big. And then the biggest struggle that we learned was the hiring. We were bringing in anybody and everybody that wanted to come work for us. I mean, there was no hiring process, Leon. It was like, oh, you want to come in. And all we did was what I did as an agent. We just cold called. We cold called and door knocked. Our first wholesale deal when we opened up the company was a door knock here in gain a point just from going to a neighborhood, no strategy, no script, no contract, really, just knocking on the door saying, would you be open to an offer if you thought about selling? There was no structure to anything outside of let's just make a whole bunch of offers and see what sticks.
That's a good strategy, whether you knew it or not. The one thing I love, there's many things, but one of the things I love about the retail agent's influence on this side, investors have had a ton of influence on the other side, but retail, come to 2020, 2021, a lot of the cold calling tech strategies, retail agents had been doing for a very long time, where investors were really relying on direct to seller marketing, referrals, but less than what agents did on a daily basis. And so the two blended together because agents don't do a lot of marketing, at least from traditional direct mail and television and things like that. At least it's less common. You put those together, those two together, and it's a winning formula to making sure that you're getting all referrals, all inbound and outbound strategies covered. And obviously, not knowing what to do, you just made offers, which I think is a brilliant strategy for those out there that are listening to this going, where should I start? Start making offers. Start making calls, start making offers, start banging on doors, do whatever you need to do to start the process instead of just analysis paralysis. When did it start to really click? Was there a relationship that you made, a mentor, a community? When did this start to really click for you?
Yeah. So good point. And to your point, guys, it was all grunt, literally just, I didn't know what inbound marketing was, Leon. Like I did, but I didn't. Like I had an idea. You know what I thought it was? I thought it was Real Geeks or like Google Ads. Remember Real Geeks back in the day?
Yes.
I think they still exist, actually.
So that was another one back then too for agents. It was agents had this inbound lead source as well. Goodness, I forget, but it was like a PPL service before PPL was a thing.
Before it's a thing, right? And because I came from the Mike Ferry world, no one talked about inbound. And the only thing they talked about was cold call and door knock. And a matter of fact, going to spend money on marketing was actually like frowned upon. It was like a no-no from where I came from. So when we went to it was Carlos Reyes's first event, and I saw that they were spending $1 million a year on marketing for inbound leads, my brain was just it exploded. At that time, I knew this is where we're going. This is great, but like you said, if I can get this and stack it with this, it's game over. And I also knew that there was something missing. I knew that there was no way we can get to 5 million, 6 million, 10 million by just literally me, Nick, cold calling and door knocking all day long. That's not going to happen, right? That's not going to happen at all. So I was turned on to something I didn't know. And this is really big because a lot of us we're doing the same thing over and over and over again without asking ourselves, what am I missing? What am I not seeing? Right? I love the assignment where you close your eyes, you think of the color blue, you open your eyes and you look around for the color blue. You spot blue everywhere. And then they ask, okay, where was the color brown? And you go, well, I don't know. Well, the color brown has been sitting right in front of you, but because you were so focused on blue, you couldn't see brown. Well, that was us with marketing. We were so focused on door knocking and cold calling that we weren't able to see the other side of it. And when we went to that event and I saw they're spending $1 million a month in marketing, Nick and I immediately made that decision. We're finding a way to get to $1 million a year in marketing.
What you just pinpointed right there, I don't think I've ever been able to say it as well as you just said it. That is typically the hang up of most retail agents of why they can't make the transition. Like, it doesn't mean that they can't do investing on the side and as a side hustle, but it's hard to get out of their retail transition to, I've got to spend money on marketing now. It's no longer sphere of influence. It's no longer family, friends, cold calling, door knocking. It's now, I can still do those things, but in order to truly have a business versus a side hustle, I'm going to have to get comfortable with investing in marketing. And obviously not wasting money, continuing to make sure that you're spending the money on the right things. But that's the biggest hang up I see from retail agents to going full-time investing.
Yeah. And when I was coming up, it was like you had to be like the 1% of agents to even think about it. right? There's so much limitation on the agent side. There's so many limiting beliefs, I believe, on the agent side that really cap them production wise. Because I also think about this. I talk to all the agents that just cold call, door knock, and work on their center of influence. I don't know many of them generating $5 million in revenue. I don't know many of them generating $10 million in revenue. A matter of fact, I don't know many of them generating more than $1 million in revenue. So when I looked at that, I'm like, hold on. Okay, these people aren't even generating more than $500,000. And then you have these people that are spending money on inbound, and you got companies like in my backyard that are doing $10, $20 million in revenue. Where do you want to be? Right. And that's making a decision. And to this point, guys, this is such a point. I want you all to listen to this. Know thyself. Know thyself. Some of you are agents and you don't want to do that. And a matter of fact, if you even went there, you probably wouldn't sleep. You'll be very unhappy, and that's not who you are. Okay, great. Then stay what you're doing. But for those of you that are willing to push that envelope, willing to go all in, willing to bet on yourself, that's the way to do it. What CG, what we've learned here, what my mind has been exposed to, it's that, Leon. It's that right there.
Last week, Clifford told us what you just kind of said is he came into the room and he said, guys like Doug Hopkins and Damon Lyons and Jeff Neidegger, they showed me what's possible. I didn't know that you could do 10, 15, $20 million of revenue, gross profit on an annualized basis, with a lot of times those margins, being super hefty, usually in that 25 to 35%. That's a big number.
It's a big number.
Point, right? So coming through the door and you're like, and for Clint, in his particular case, lives in Atlanta. He's like, man, I'm in a big market. There's no reason I can't do what these guys are doing. So for you, when it came to the Collective Genius, you signed up in 22. So can't believe it's already been 4 years now. How did you first hear about us? Because I think if I remember correctly, you knew Gino.
Yes.
Another young gun that was crushing. Speaking of Atlanta, was crushing in Atlanta. How did you know Gino, and how did you find out about the Collective Genius?
Yeah, so I found out you guys through Ryan Pineda. Ryan was with you guys, and I was part of Carlos's community. That's how I met Ryan, then became friends with Ryan. We were doing one of his golf days, and I was with Gino in the car. And Gino was like, he was hearing our business model. He's like, dude, you guys are crushing it. But I was explaining to him some of the struggles we had. I'm like, dude, but we can't scale. Like, it's hard for us to scale. We have 17 people. We have 16 cold callers. We have 25 texters. Like, we're capped. And that's when he said, you need to come to Collective Genius. And he actually called you, right, or texted you in the cart when we were golfing. And I'll never forget that, because I think we spoke a week later.
Yeah. This is where, I fell in love with this community because, there's a lot of options out there for you as an entrepreneur. It's generally, you have to really vet each group to make sure that they're right for you. Know thyself, as you mentioned before. What I've always found, when we put good people in the room and they get next to other good people, they attract them. And that person says, tell me, where are you getting all this information from? Oh, right. It's from my friends at this community, specifically in this example, CG. Gino's a great example of that. He originally came from to us from Steve Train.
Right.
Steve Train called me directly and said, hey, this kid is still in college, but he's doing $1 million a year in revenue while in his senior year of college at Valdosta State. I'm like, what? Hold on. Again, good people know good people. And bringing you into a group like this, tell me that first meeting that you came to, was there that moment where you got that CG slap of going, oh my gosh, this is something I need to be doing right away? Or like in Clint's case, where he saw somebody doing $15, $20 million a year and going, oh, this is possible.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say it the way it is. It was the saving grace, Leon. I walked in that room and I immediately knew, you get an intuition, right? That like godlike feeling. I just knew I was in the right room. There were no egos. Nobody was trying to be better than anybody. Everybody was giving, and you got to see people that you don't see. So here's another thing. I was a little trapped by this, okay? Anybody who knows me very well knows that I was a big Instagram guy for a long time. A lot of the guys on Instagram aren't the guys that are in the CG room for a reason. They're the actual guys really, really doing it. right? And I got to see a room of real business owners, real people that have a real business, really pushing the envelope. And to me, it was like, this is what I've been looking for a very long time. It was the community that connected the dots for us, Leah.
Love hearing that. Is there anything that, like, the biggest takeaway? Is there a marketing piece, a sales piece? What's helped the business the most that since you've been in?
It's what Clint said. It's the proximity and the awareness to know, and the perspective to know that I can do $10 million, $20 million, $30 million, and there's plenty enough for everybody. It was that perspective. It was the mindset shift from $1 million to 2 million to 10 to 20. The mindset shift from, well, oh my God, I can't spend 25 grand on PPC, to no, we need to spend $200,000 on PPC. And this is why. And it just made sense. It was the time where literally Nick and I came back to the office, and I remember him. He was like, I got to throw my wardrobe away. I got to throw it all away because it doesn't fit this room. It fit the last few rooms, but it doesn't fit this room. This is a professional room. This is the room where the elites get together. This is the room where if you want to really do something, you join this room. And for me, that was it, Leon. And I can't. You don't know what you don't know. We talked about that, but you also can't have something that you've never seen or know it's out there. And when I can see these guys like Casey, I talk to Casey often, or Damon or Doug, I can see it. It makes sense. It gives us a direction to go towards.
What's working right now? I know a lot of people in 25 closed out the year. Probably, a lot of people into the year not closing out the way they wanted to. We have some people obviously that are doing really well, but there are the people that are a lot of those people you just named all have something that's working really, really well for them. For those that are listening right now, going into 26, and I should be excited about this because this is working for CG members. Is there one particular thing that you're excited about that's working for you right now?
Yeah, the fact that we're just keeping it lean. We don't have our team we have the right team that's working for us right now. We have it's not a big, we went from this massive, all these people, to just down to the core of people that can really help move the needle forward. And we learned that from getting the right people in the right seats from your community, from the CG community. That's what's really working for us right now. There's some marketing stuff that took us some long time to finally work, and it's now working. TV took 1.5 years to work, and it's now starting to work. PPC, we're now starting to get it really dialed in. But I want to say that the biggest common denominator is our team. It's just working.
Give me some more insight on that. I think this is super important right now in this market today. The market is better today than it was last year. That said, it's still not, what a lot of people came into this business in 2019 and 2020. It's not that. I think lean is super important as long as you're not, burning people out that are long-term employees. When you say lean in operation, are we talking 5 full-time employees, 7 full-time employees? What does that look like?
Yeah, so all we have is 5. We have five full-time employees, and I believe that a lot of us overcomplicate a lot of the roles that we have, and I think that we over-justify some of the roles. I think sometimes dispo or acquisitions would try to over-justify how busy they are when you're really not that busy. If we have 2 deals a week on dispo, that's not that busy. And so what we've seen, and what Nick and I have just came very clear on, is that it's all perspective, right? It's all perspective with how much workload we have. So we do our best on helping the guys understand that, you guys, we're not that busy, right? If Doug and Damon can do what they're doing, right, at that time with 7 guys, we can do this with 5. We just got to get a little bit more systematical. We just got to get, to your point, our SOPs have to be in place, right? Our systems and processes, our CRM has to be in place, so we're not burning them out. And that's been a work in progress. But to really fine tune it, what I think the change was in our organization is everybody believes that we're just not that busy. There's not that, we are, but we're not. we can accept more. There's much more that can be added to this plate if done right. If we do it wrong, of course, 2 deals would make it seem like 100 deals. But I've seen 100. I've seen people do 100 deals and they make it seem like they're doing 2.
It's the old George Costanza, right? Everybody, if you seem annoyed and you seem busy, everybody thinks you're super busy. So
Right.
I will say that there was a time in which the market was 2020, 2021, where teams were gearing up because they were doing deals like Clint we were talking about earlier in Atlanta. And he was selling to institutions 115, 120% over what he thought they were even worth, the ARV, because they just needed inventory and they were willing to pay for that inventory. Well, you start to build something up, but you also have to know on the other side of that, at some point that's going to run out. If I look at a strategy that's been most consistent through my 7 years on this side of CG and my 11 years of affiliation with this organization, the operators that are the best by far obviously have all the things that you just mentioned, and a lot of those things they got here, right? The SOPs, the CRM, and the follow-up systems, and all the things that make people more efficient because a lot of the things are automated. You can then run very lean, but here's the important thing if you're going to run lean. Hire smart people. When you hire smart people, you can give them any process, and they not only will follow it, they will make it better. They'll make it their own, and more than likely better than what you would have originally came up with. They'll keep reiterating it. If you just hire somebody that's just going to punch the buttons, that's okay for now. But if you're going to run lean in the future as you grow your business, get into the 2s and the 3s and the $4 million of annual profit, then you have to start looking at, all right, now I can afford better people. High COG score is a must. And I say that specifically because the work of a smart person that makes correct, smart decisions, they will outwork typically 2 to 3 people that are just average. And you can't afford to run very lean when you hire very smart. And as long as you have good process in place and you continue to make that process better and evolve with the market's always changing and it is cyclical. We're going to have another opportunity in the future where it's going to be crazy. We're going to have another opportunity. We're going to have another situation where the market drops. We're just going to have those things. But the best businesses that ride the storm have the best teams with the best systems. And you can run lean. You don't have to over hire for most of these positions. I've seen people, like you mentioned, have $5 to $10 million businesses with no more than 7 to 10 employees.
Right. And we've been in the business where we did 2 million and we had 16 employees. And you're like, what are you doing? Right. No one's making money. And so yeah, and then that's huge. And thank you for that. Right. I was writing everything you said down. We are looking to bring one more person on just to handle a lot of the follow-up stuff. So this really helps. And to everybody watching, guys, I think that's to a side note is like, always be a student of this game. Like, I think I have a saying here at our office, and it's the moment we know that we have it all figured out is the day we lose. Like, I'm always trying to be a student of the game. Always. So I may call you back, Leon, and ask you some questions about that high COG score, because I want to make sure that it's done right.
Well, see, this is to what you just mentioned earlier about being in the room. I didn't know what score was until I think someone brought it to CG. Maybe it was Sharper. I think brought it 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something along those lines, maybe longer ago. But I understood what a cognitive test was, but I didn't understand how that related into personality tests and all those type of things that we've seen come down the pike here again in the Collective Genius. And then when I really broke it down with Gary Harper one day, I was like, dude, that's probably the most important. Now, not everybody that in every role needs a high COG score, because I can tell you there's a couple employees here at the Collective Genius that didn't test high on a COG, but they're great employees.
Right.
Cognitive it's testing your ability to make quick, smart decisions that are accurate, right? Well, in most of our roles, we need that. We need that in acquisitions, right? We need that in lead managers. So when that started coming down and more people started implementing it in this business, what I started to notice is like smart people like Eric Brewer said, all right, there can be exceptions to the rule, but for these positions, we hire no lower than this number on a COG score. Because what we have found, and anybody lower than this number hasn't had success. Tried and true, right? Those are things that I now have a blueprint. I don't have to waste time to figure out what my number is. I can just go, Eric, hey, tell me again what your number is. He actually did a presentation on it. Let me get that number, and I'll just adapt for my particular team, or just run that number as his. Like, those are the type of things you get from a community when you're around other smart people that say, hey, I too have a problem hiring. And so I'm just going to make sure that instead of hiring a bunch of people, I'm just going to hire the best.
So good. I love that. Yeah. Did you remember what he said for the COG score for acquisitions?
Now, as I was seeing in me, I was like, what is that number? In fact, I've texted him a couple of times in the past, so I'm sure it's in my text chains, but I'll get it for you.
Awesome.
It was on a presentation that he and Benmont did. It was either one of our monthly calls or at a meeting, but I'll just text him real quick and get it for you. But I will say this, it is different for some roles. Like acquisitions is higher than like TC. Now TC might be up there as well, because they do have to make quick decisions and deal with sellers at almost the highest level as an acquisitions on the acquisition side.
100%.
Anything else that you're excited about right now going into 26 with your business?
Yeah, we're scaling marketing or inbound marketing, really getting mail dialed in. We've struggled with getting mail really solidified. And so we have some of the CG members helping us with getting mail dialed in. And we're really just excited that TV is finally starting to work for us. It's literally been a 5-year run to try to get on TV. And we finally got on a year and a half ago, and it's finally working for us. It's paying off. And I'm just really excited about this year. We've had a lot of really, really big learning lesson years, a lot. I want to say probably more than what we should have. But I'm grateful for them, and I'm excited because we have all the right pieces in order for this year.
Well, I love what you said there, and I think that I don't want to gloss over it. You now have said, I think 3 times, that TV is finally working. For those that are listening that are doing TV and that they don't feel like it's giving them a great return, or about to do television, just do it. Now, there are some exceptions to the rule. There are markets where it's really tough to dominate. Like if you're in New York City, but you only do Long Island, it's very hard to do television because you only want Long Island leads. You don't want Manhattan leads. I get it. There's some markets that are exceptions to the rule, and you have to use different strategies for that. But for the most part, most markets are really good television markets. I love to hear that you said, we held on. We know it works. We talk about this on the pod all the time. There's the 3-legged tripod, the tripod here for real estate investors that we've seen tried and true. It's PPC, it's direct mail, and it's television. Now, you can do all the other things, but if you want to be one of those $5 to $20 million businesses, you're doing those 3 things consistently well. And I'm so glad to hear that you held on, and now it's working for you.
Yeah, I was going to call you in May and be like, what am I doing? I was going to call you again in August and be like, hey, Leon, I'm about to jump off that jetty out there because I'm barely sleeping. Right. But, every story I read, every book I read of somebody that's gotten somewhere great, they go through a valley of uncertainty. And I love this quote, and it says, your quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you can handle. I'll say that again. The quality of your life is in direct proportion to how much uncertainty you can handle, because eventually the sun comes out and eventually summer comes, right? But can you get through the winter? Can you get through the winter? So many people give up during the winter, right? How much uncertainty can you handle? And my wife was even concerned for me. My wife was probably about to call you, Leon, and be like, what do you guys have my husband doing over here? Because I literally was just questioning what we were doing. But that's part of it. That's part of the process, right? It's being able to push forward, and then you get to the end and you're like, dude, it worked, right? It worked. So I'm really excited about that. And I want to share this. This is what I'm really excited about. prior to joining CG, okay, my values, and this is my 2026 personal and family business operation, right? Put on my values were about business, income, things. I joined CG and I got turned on to some guys that takes their family much more seriously. That's not just about business. And so kudos to you. Kudos to everybody inside of Collective Genius, because now it's family first. It's my kid first, my wife first, my kid first, my family first. And that's my value. Before, it used to be success number one. And it would drive me crazy. And I joined CG and I got to see a community that they are about their family. You know, it's funny. The first community I was in, I could count 100 people, and out of those 100 people, maybe 50 or 60 of them were divorced. You go to this room, and you get the families coming to the events. We have prayer sessions. It like, when I say connected the dots, it's not just made me a better business person. It's made me a better like family man. And so, yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm excited because I also know when you put that first, everything else comes together, right? But when it's opposite, it's hard. You're fighting an uphill battle, man. So I just want to kudos. Thank you.
Love hearing that. If people want to reach out to you, I know you're active. You used to be a lot more active on social media. You're still there. How would people find you?
Find me on Instagram, guys, at Adrian Hernandez, or YouTube, Adrian Hernandez.
Are you still doing a lot of YouTube stuff?
I'm going to go more YouTube. Yeah, I was talking to Jeff yesterday. I think I'm going to kind of come off Instagram just because of the brand. In fact, we're on TV now. I think I'm going to pull that one back and just focus more on YouTube.
Well, I think you could stay on Instagram, but obviously, I think you just never know where people are watching. So I don't think it would be a bad thing to stay there. You just, the posting, if you're going all in on YouTube, it would make sense.
Yeah, I get changed the content. I was talking to, I was a coaching agents for a while. And so a lot of that was like how to get off market deals, how to do this. And then, you think of a seller going to your Instagram and seeing that, right? So it may cross-pollinate with the brand. But to your point, I think I just need to change the message up a little bit.
I would consider a podcast member that we've or guest that we've had on in the past that is a longtime CG member that's now only doing self-storage. Alex Pardo. Look up Alex Pardo. He's a good friend. He made the transition from single family, just like you, cut off retail. He went into self-storage, and he had this, all of these episodes of a podcast that were all about single family. And he had to make this transition to self-storage only. And so he has made that transition really, really well from the podcast, but also all of his online stuff as well.
I love that. I'll take a look at that. And to the Instagram point, I also had to make a decision, and this is maybe for some of you. My son was born when I pulled off of Instagram, and I realized that a lot of the hours I was spending filming or on Instagram, I was taking away from being with him. So I just made a conscious decision that the hours I was spending filming were going to be the hours I spend with him. And that was just, a conscious effort for now, right? And I was talking to a mentor, and they're like, how long is that going to last? Like, I don't know, maybe join soccer in the future. And I'm not having to, but these 3 years for me, I wouldn't trade for Instagram.
No, there's phases to this, and having 2 boys myself, I will say that the best is when you can incorporate things together with your kids. Like I hear people all the time talking about, well, I want to go play golf, but I don't want to, I want to spend time with my kids. Well, how about playing golf with the kids? Put the two together.
This is right.
And there will be a time in your life where I think Casey Gregerson does this a lot in CG, where he incorporates his kids in his business. Joel Jansen does that in his television commercials, and makes sure he gets that type of time in when it would just be business time. It's also family time at the same time. So how old is your son now?
He's 3.
He's 3. Okay. All right. So yeah, you've got some time. You're just now starting to like daddy a lot.
He's just, yeah. The last 2 years, he's really been, even today, I drop him off at school. He cries because I'm leaving, but it's good. But I like that. I like that bringing him into it, and I think he'll enjoy it too.
Very cool. What's that Instagram again for everyone?
Adrian Hernandez, guys, just my name. And Leon, I really appreciate you having me on, man. This was awesome.
Man, your energy is infectious, my friend. Always, anytime I get an opportunity to talk to you, I'm going to take that full advantage of that opportunity. Thank you for joining us, sharing all your information, your story. It was a great episode, and I appreciate you being on.
Well, I appreciate you guys, and thank you for everybody that watched. If you guys haven't done so already, I don't know why you're waiting. Hit the subscribe button. Let's go.
How about that? Thank you, my friend. Also, what are you waiting for? You need to be in this community. You just heard Adrian and what this group has done for his business. ExploreCG.com. That's where all of our information, all the tiers. If you're a full-time real estate investor that wants to grow and scale their business, but also become a better human being, like Adrian said earlier, go to that website, ExploreCG.com. Fill out the application. We'll talk to you on the other side. We will also talk to you next week. This is it for this Collective Genius podcast. We will see you next week. Take care, everyone.
Are you ready to scale your real estate business? Visit thecollectivegenius.com, where real estate investors come to scale. Subscribe to the Collective Genius podcast and hit the bell icon to be notified when our next episode releases. And thanks for listening.